the aircraft that made personal flight look possible. For more than a century, flying was something most people could only experience as passengers. You bought a ticket, you went to an airport, you sat inside a cabin, and someone else controlled the aircraft. But then one video changed the conversation. A small, open-frame aircraft lifted off from the ground. One person sat in the middle. 8 electric rotors spun around him. There were no wings, no runway, no helicopter blades, and no long takeoff roll. Just a joystick, a lightweight frame, and open air. The aircraft rose above the grass, moved forward like a giant racing drone, and suddenly personal flight did not feel like science fiction anymore. It felt close. This is the Jetson ONE, a single-seat electric personal aircraft built to give one person the experience of vertical flight. It does not fly across countries. It does not carry passengers. It does not replace your car. But it may have done something even more important. It made millions of people believe that personal flight could finally become real. So what technology makes the Jetson ONE work? Why did it go viral? And why are so many people calling it one of the most exciting personal eVTOLs in the world? Let's break it down. Jetson ONE does not try to be a flying car. The first thing that makes the Jetson ONE interesting is what it does not try to be. It does not try to drive on roads. It does not try to carry a family. It does not try to become a flying taxi. It does not try to replace a helicopter. And it does not pretend to solve every transportation problem at once. That is important, because many flying car concepts are trapped by one impossible challenge. They try to be both a car and an aircraft. But a road vehicle and an aircraft need completely different things. A car needs wheels, suspension, headlights, road safety equipment, crash structure, steering, brakes, mirrors, doors, and the ability to survive normal traffic. An aircraft needs lift, low weight, balance, redundancy, flight controls, battery power, aerodynamic efficiency, and safety systems that work in the air. When engineers try to combine both worlds into one machine, the result often becomes complicated. Too heavy for flight, too strange for driving, too expensive for ordinary users, and too difficult to certify. Jetson ONE avoids that trap. It is not a car. It is a personal electric aircraft. That focus is one of its greatest strengths. Instead of trying to be a road vehicle, Jetson ONE is built around one simple mission: give one person a short, thrilling, electric vertical flight experience. That is why the aircraft looks so clean and direct. One seat, 8 electric motors, an open aluminum frame, a joystick, a battery system, and a pilot in the center. This design is easy to understand. The moment people see it, they know what it does. It is basically a human-sized drone. And that simplicity is powerful. Because new technology does not only need to work, people also need to understand it. Jetson ONE has that rare quality. It looks futuristic but not confusing. It looks extreme but not impossible. It looks like something a person could actually imagine owning. And that is the first reason it became such a strong choice in the personal eVTOL market. It does not try to be everything. It tries to do one thing very well: make personal flight feel real. The open frame design makes it light, simple, and emotional. The Jetson ONE does not have a closed cabin. It does not have heavy doors. It does not have a windshield. It does not have luxury interior trim. It does not have road equipment. Instead, it uses an open frame design that looks almost like a mix between a racing drone, a go-kart, and an ultralight aircraft. That may look simple, but it is a very smart engineering choice. In electric aviation, weight is everything. Every extra pound matters. Every extra kilogram reduces flight time. And every additional component forces the motors and batteries to work harder. This is the biggest challenge for personal eVTOL aircraft. If you add more battery, you get more energy, but the aircraft becomes heavier. When the aircraft becomes heavier, It needs more thrust. When it needs more thrust, it uses more energy, and suddenly the bigger battery does not help as much as you expected. This is the weight spiral. Jetson ONE fights that problem by removing anything that is not essential. The official specifications list the aircraft mass, including batteries, at 115 kilograms, or about 253 pounds. The empty mass is listed at 55 kilograms, or about 121 pounds. That is extremely light for a machine designed to lift a human into the air. The chassis is an all-aluminum space airframe. That means the aircraft uses a lightweight structural frame rather than a heavy body shell. The result is a machine that feels raw, exposed, and mechanical. But that is also what makes it exciting. When the pilot sits inside, they are not hidden behind glass. They are not separated from the sky. They are part of the flying experience. The rotors are visible. The ground is visible. The air is around them. The feeling is closer to riding a motorcycle than sitting inside an airplane. That emotional connection is a huge part of Jetson ONE's appeal. Many eVTOL aircraft look like transport pods. They are built to move passengers. Jetson ONE looks like a machine built to give the pilot a sensation. That difference matters, because people do not only buy personal aircraft for utility, they buy them for freedom, for adrenaline, for the feeling of leaving the ground under their own control. The open frame design gives Jetson ONE that emotional identity. It makes the machine feel personal, not like a taxi, not like public transportation, like your own flying machine. 8 electric motors give it drone-like control. At the heart of Jetson ONE is its propulsion system. The aircraft uses 8 electric motors and 8 propellers, arranged around the pilot. This is one of the most important technologies on the aircraft. Traditional helicopters use one large main rotor and a tail rotor. That design is powerful, but it is mechanically complex. It requires advanced pilot skill, and it depends on a very different control system. Jetson ONE takes a multi-copter approach. Instead of one big rotor, it uses multiple, smaller electric rotors. This gives the aircraft a very different personality. Electric motors can respond extremely quickly. They can speed up or slow down almost instantly. And when they are connected to a flight computer, the aircraft can make constant adjustments many times per second. That is what gives multi-copter-style eVTOLs their stability. The pilot does not manually balance all 8 motors. The pilot gives commands. The flight computer interprets those commands. Then the system adjusts motor speeds to keep the aircraft stable and moving in the right direction. This is similar to how consumer drones work. A drone pilot does not directly control every motor. They move a stick, and the flight controller does the hard work. Jetson ONE uses that same basic idea, but scaled up to carry a human. That is why the aircraft feels more intuitive than a helicopter. A helicopter requires coordination of multiple controls at once. A personal multicopter can hide some of that complexity behind software. That does not mean the Jetson ONE flies itself completely. The pilot is still responsible. But the aircraft is designed to make the basic control experience easier to understand. The 8-motor setup also improves redundancy. If an aircraft depends on one main rotor and that rotor system fails, the situation can become extremely serious. With multiple electric motors, the aircraft has more options. Jetson promotes the idea of continued control under certain failure conditions, supported by flight computers and redundant propulsion architecture. For personal aviation, that is crucial. People need to believe the aircraft has backups. They need to know it was designed with failure in mind. And they need to feel that the machine is not balancing on one single point of danger. That is why distributed electric propulsion is such a major breakthrough. It is not only about making the aircraft electric, it is about making the aircraft controllable, responsive, and easier to stabilize. Jetson ONE uses that technology to turn a giant drone-like concept into a personal flying machine. The battery system is powerful, but also the main limitation. The Jetson ONE uses high-discharge lithium-ion batteries. This is an important detail. A battery in an eVTOL aircraft does not work like a battery in a phone. It does not even work like a battery in an electric car. An electric car only has to move along the ground. An eVTOL has to fight gravity every second it is in the air. That means the batteries must deliver high power continuously. The motors need enough energy to lift the aircraft, stabilize it, climb, hover, turn, and land safely. This is why flight time is still limited for many personal electric aircraft. Jetson ONE's official approximate flight time is 20 minutes. Its top-level flight speed is software limited to 102 kilometers per hour, or 63 miles per hour. Jetson has also published endurance test information showing a covered distance of 17.74 kilometers, or 11.02 miles, at a cruise speed of 60 kilometers per hour, or 37 miles per hour, under test conditions. These numbers are important because they show both the strength and the weakness of the aircraft. The strength is clear. Jetson ONE can actually fly. It has enough power for vertical takeoff, low-altitude maneuvering, forward movement, and controlled landing. For a personal recreational aircraft, 20 minutes can be enough to create an unforgettable experience. But the limitation is also clear. This is not a long-distance commuter. It is not designed to replace a car for daily transportation. It is not built for crossing a large city in all weather. And it is not meant to operate like an air taxi doing flight after flight all day. The battery technology makes Jetson ONE possible. But battery technology also defines its limits. This is the central challenge of the entire eVTOL industry: energy density. Jet fuel stores far more usable energy per unit of weight than today's batteries. That is why conventional aircraft can fly for hours. Batteries are clean, responsive, and great for electric motors, but they are heavy for the amount of energy they store. So Jetson ONE has to make a trade-off. It stays light, it flies short, it focuses on the personal experience, and that may be the right choice for this stage of the technology. Instead of promising impossible range, Jetson ONE gives buyers something realistic: a short, thrilling, electric flight. Not a transportation revolution for everyone yet, but a real first step. The 4-axis joystick makes flying feel more natural. Another key part of Jetson ONE's appeal is the control system. The official specs list a 4-axis joystick. That may sound like a small detail, but it is one of the most important parts of the entire experience. Why? Because flying is intimidating. Most people understand how to drive a car. Most people understand how to ride a bicycle or motorcycle. But flying an aircraft feels different. It feels technical. It feels dangerous. It feels like something only trained pilots can do. Jetson ONE tries to reduce that psychological barrier. The pilot sits in the center of the frame and uses the joystick to command the aircraft. The flight computer handles stabilization in the background. The motors adjust automatically. The pilot does not need to think about each individual rotor. They think in terms of direction, altitude, and movement. This makes the aircraft feel more like a personal vehicle and less like a traditional aircraft cockpit. That is a major reason why people are attracted to it. Jetson ONE does not look like a machine that requires a full instrument panel and years of training just to understand. It looks like something a person can learn step by step. Now, this must be said clearly. Simple controls do not mean flying is risk-free. A pilot still needs to understand safety. They need to understand weather. They need to know where they are allowed to fly. They need to check the aircraft. They need to respect battery limits. They need emergency procedures. They need to operate responsibly. But the interface matters. A product becomes more attractive when it feels less intimidating. Jetson ONE's control concept helps create that feeling. It turns the pilot from a traditional aircraft operator into someone guiding a computer-assisted flying machine. That is where personal aviation may be heading. Not manual flying like the early days of aviation, Not fully autonomous transportation for everyone, but assisted flight. Human intention plus computer stabilization. That is the sweet spot Jetson One is trying to reach. The compact size makes it feel like something you could actually own. One of the biggest reasons people love Jetson One is its size. A lot of eVTOL aircraft look impressive, but they also look massive. They need vertiports, they need charging stations, they need commercial operators, they need air taxi networks. They feel like infrastructure projects. Jetson One feels different. It looks like something a person could put on a trailer, store in a private space, and bring to an open field. Official dimensions list the aircraft at about 2,700 millimeters long, 1,600 millimeters wide, and 1,120 millimeters tall. That is approximately 8 feet 10 inches long, 5 feet 3 inches wide, and 3 feet 8 inches tall. When folded, the width is listed at 980 millimeters, or about 3 feet 2 inches. That folding width is a huge part of the psychological appeal. It makes the aircraft feel less like a full-size airplane and more like a high-end personal machine. Something closer to an ATV, jet ski, motorcycle, or racing vehicle. That is important because personal ownership requires more than flight. You need storage, you need transport, you need maintenance access, you need charging. You need a place to keep it when it is not flying. If an aircraft is too large, it becomes difficult for private owners. If it needs a hangar, airport space, or specialized facility, the dream becomes less personal. Jetson One's compact footprint makes the ownership idea easier to imagine. This is one reason it connects with early adopters. It feels like a luxury toy, a personal aircraft, and a future vehicle all at once. And that is a powerful combination. For many buyers, the question is not, can this replace my car? The question is, can I own something that lets me fly? Jetson One answers that question more clearly than many larger eVTOL concepts. Safety technology is the key to trust. No matter how exciting Jetson One looks, one question always comes first. Is it safe? That is the question every buyer, viewer, regulator, and pilot will ask. And the answer is not simple. Any flying machine carries risk, but Jetson One includes several technologies designed to reduce that risk and increase confidence. First, it uses distributed electric propulsion with 8 motors. This gives the aircraft redundancy compared with a single-source lift system. Second, it uses flight computer stabilization. That reduces the workload on the pilot and helps the aircraft remain controllable. Third, the aircraft is promoted with safety features such as a ballistic parachute system. A ballistic parachute can deploy in an emergency and help bring the aircraft down under canopy. This is not a feature anyone wants to use, but its presence matters. It gives pilots another layer of protection if something goes seriously wrong. Fourth, Jetson One uses a protective open frame around the pilot. The structure is not a closed cabin, but it does create a visible safety cage around the seat. Fifth, the aircraft is operated with safety gear, such as harnesses and helmets. That reinforces the idea that this is not a toy. It is a real aircraft-like machine that must be treated with respect. But Jetson One also has limitations that affect safety. It is exposed to wind. It is open to weather. It has limited flight time. It has a maximum pilot weight of 95 kilograms, or 210 pounds. And because it is designed for short-range recreational flying, it must be operated in the right environment. This is why Jetson One is best understood as a controlled, personal flight machine, not a casual backyard gadget. The technology helps. The software helps. The safety systems help. But the pilot still matters. The location matters. The conditions matter. And the rules matter. That honest view is important. Jetson One is exciting because it makes personal flight more approachable. But it still belongs in aviation. And aviation always demands respect. Why Jetson One became the choice people talk about. So why does Jetson One stand out when there are so many eVTOL projects in the world? The answer is not one single feature. It is the combination. First, it is visually simple. People see it and immediately understand it. 8 rotors lift 1 person. That is easy to grasp. Second, it looks fun. Many eVTOL aircraft look like transportation pods. Jetson One looks like an experience. It looks like something you would want to fly, not just ride in. Third, it is personal. A flying taxi belongs to a company. A commercial eVTOL belongs to an operator. Jetson One feels like it belongs to the pilot. That ownership feeling is extremely powerful. Fourth, it has realistic limits. Jetson does not need to claim 300 miles of range or highway driving capability. It accepts the current limits of battery technology and builds a product around a short, exciting flight experience. Fifth, it has viral appeal. The videos are incredible. A small aircraft flying low through open landscapes is easy to understand and hard to ignore. That matters in the modern technology market. A machine that looks amazing on video can become famous much faster than a machine that only looks good in a spec sheet. Sixth, it feels closer to customers than many competitors. Jetson is taking orders for future production years, and the official website presents it like a product rather than only a concept. That makes the dream feel more concrete. And finally, the Jetson One has the perfect emotional message. It says, you do not have to wait for flying taxis. You do not have to wait for city infrastructure. You do not have to wait for a giant aerospace company. Personal flight can begin with 1 person and 1 machine. That message is why people choose it emotionally. Maybe not because it is the most practical aircraft, maybe not because it has the longest range, but because it makes the dream feel closest. Why Jetson One is not a car replacement. This is important. Jetson One is often called a flying car online, but that description can be misleading. It does not drive on roads. It does not carry groceries. It does not take children to school. It does not fly in all weather. It does not solve traffic congestion, and it does not have the range or infrastructure to replace daily driving. The official flight time is about 20 minutes. That is enough for recreational flight, demonstrations, training environments, and private area operation. But it is not enough for normal commuting in most cases. The pilot weight limit also matters. At 95 kilograms or 210 pounds, the aircraft is not suitable for every adult. The open cockpit means comfort is limited. The aircraft is more exposed than an enclosed eVTOL. The noise and rotor wash must be considered, and regulations vary widely by country. In the United States, some ultralight vehicles may be operated under FAA Part 103 rules without a traditional pilot certificate. But those rules include strict limits and do not mean unrestricted flying. This is why Jetson One should not be oversold. It is not the future of everyday city travel yet. It is not the aircraft that will replace highways. It is not a mass-market commuter vehicle. Instead, it is something different. A first-generation personal electric flying machine. A recreational aircraft. A technology demonstrator that is becoming a real product. A bridge between drones and human flight. And that may be enough. Not every revolutionary product begins by replacing something immediately. Sometimes it begins by creating desire. The first motorcycles did not replace cars. The first personal computers did not replace every office system overnight. The first electric cars had limited range in small markets. But they created a category. Jetson One may be doing the same thing for personal eVTOL flight. The real technology is not just hardware, it is confidence. When people talk about Jetson One, they often mention the obvious technologies: the motors, the batteries, the frame, the joystick, the parachute, the flight computer. But the deeper innovation is confidence. Jetson One gives people confidence that personal flight can be understandable. That is not a small achievement. For decades, personal aircraft felt distant. Small airplanes required runways. Helicopters were expensive and difficult. Jetpacks looked dangerous. Flying cars looked unrealistic. And eVTOL air taxis felt like something cities would control, not individuals. Jetson ONE changes the feeling. It shows a machine that appears simple enough to understand at a glance. It shows one person flying. It shows vertical takeoff. It shows compact size. It shows a short but real flight experience. That creates confidence. Not full confidence that the world is ready for personal flight tomorrow, but enough confidence to make people believe the category is real. And for a new technology, belief matters. Investors need to believe. Customers need to believe. Regulators need to see progress. Engineers need to learn from real machines. The public needs to understand what the future might look like. Jetson ONE helps create that belief. This may be its biggest impact. Even if future personal aircraft look very different, Jetson ONE may be remembered as one of the machines that made the idea emotionally real. The aircraft that people saw online and immediately understood. The aircraft that turned a technical discussion into a personal desire. The aircraft that made people say, "I want one." That is powerful. Because technology does not become culture when it works in a lab. It becomes culture when people want to be part of it. The market. Why early buyers are paying attention. The Jetson ONE is not cheap. Jetson's order page currently lists the aircraft at $148,000 before taxes, duties, shipping, and other fees. That is expensive. But in the world of aviation, it is also surprisingly approachable. A new helicopter can cost hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. Even many traditional light aircraft cost far more once ownership, storage, insurance, fuel, and maintenance are included. Jetson ONE sits in a strange new category. It is priced more like an exotic car, a high-end boat, or a luxury recreational machine. That changes the buyer's psychology. For most people, it is still out of reach. But for wealthy early adopters, aviation enthusiasts, tech collectors, content creators, and private property owners, the price is close enough to imagine. That is important. A technology does not need to be affordable for everyone at the beginning. It needs to be desirable enough that early buyers prove the market exists. Tesla did not begin with a cheap family car. It began with expensive electric vehicles that proved electric cars could be exciting. Personal aviation may follow a similar path. The first machines will be expensive. They will have limits. They will appeal to enthusiasts. Then, over time, the technology may improve. Batteries may get better. Flight time may increase. Safety systems may improve. Regulations may become clearer. Training may become standardized. And the market may expand. Jetson ONE is not the end of that path. It is near the beginning. But being early matters. The first product that captures public imagination often becomes a reference point for the entire category. Right now, Jetson ONE is one of those reference points. When people think of a personal flying machine they can actually imagine owning, Jetson ONE is one of the first names that comes up. That is a huge marketing advantage. The future. What Jetson ONE could become. The Jetson ONE we see today is a first-generation type of product. It is exciting but limited. So what could the future look like? The next generation of personal eVTOLs may have longer flight time. Better batteries could increase endurance beyond 20 minutes. Improved motor efficiency could reduce power consumption. Lighter materials could reduce weight. Better rotor design could reduce noise. More advanced flight computers could improve safety and stability. Obstacle detection could become more advanced. Autonomous emergency landing could become more reliable. And training systems could make personal flight safer for more users. Future Jetson-style aircraft may also become more enclosed. A cabin could improve comfort, weather protection, and aerodynamics, but it would add weight. That is always the trade-off. More comfort means more mass. More mass means more battery. More battery means more cost. This is why the current Jetson ONE is so minimal. It is designed around what the technology can realistically support today. In the future, personal eVTOLs could become more capable. But the first step is proving that people want them. Jetson ONE has already done that. Its greatest contribution may be showing that there is real demand for personal flight. Not just air taxis, not just airline concepts, personal flight, a machine owned and controlled by an individual. That idea is incredibly powerful. And if the technology continues improving, Jetson ONE may be remembered as one of the machines that opened the door. Not because it solved every problem, but because it made the dream visible. Jetson ONE is not perfect, but it may be historic. The Jetson ONE is not the final answer to personal aviation. It does not fly far enough to replace cars. It does not carry passengers. It is exposed to weather. It has a pilot weight limit. It requires safe operating areas. And it still belongs to the early stage of personal eVTOL technology. But that is exactly what makes it important. It is early. It is real. It is simple. It is emotional. And it makes people believe. Technically, Jetson ONE combines many of the most important ideas in modern electric flight. 8 electric motors, distributed propulsion, computer-assisted stabilization, a lightweight aluminum space airframe, high-discharge lithium-ion batteries, a compact folding design, a 4-axis joystick, emergency safety systems, and a personal ownership model that feels closer than most flying taxi concepts. But emotionally, it does something even bigger. It turns personal flight from an abstract idea into a picture anyone can understand. One person, one machine, no runway, just liftoff. That is why Jetson ONE became so famous. Not because it is the most advanced aircraft ever built, not because it has unlimited range, not because it solves every transportation problem, but because it makes the dream of personal flight feel close enough to touch. And sometimes that is how revolutions begin. Not with the perfect machine, but with the first one that makes the world say, I want to try that. So is Jetson ONE the future of transportation? Not completely, but is it one of the most important first steps toward personal flight? Absolutely. The sky is no longer as far away as it used to be. And for the first time in a long time, the idea of owning your own flying machine does not sound like fantasy. It sounds like the beginning of a new category. Subscribe to Unbox the World for more futuristic aircraft, personal eVTOLs, flying cars, private aviation, extreme machines, and the technology changing how humans move through the world. This is Unbox the World. We do not just show you the machine, we open it. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.